My parents tried to make me pay my brother's $440,000 debt, then called me selfish. Here's how I fought back. Hey, so I've been hanging around this forum for a bit but never really felt the urge to say anything until now. I'm 35 and could use some advice because my family is seriously driving me up the wall. No matter what I do, I always end up being labeled the bad guy, and dealing with this never-ending family drama has just drained me mentally and emotionally. I've worked my way up in my career from scratch and now I'm a middle manager at a big software company in Silicon Valley. It took a lot of late nights and hard work to get everything I have, like my home, car, and savings. You wouldn't believe the messed up family dynamics I had to deal with along the way. Let me give you some background. I've been on my own since I was 18, financially, emotionally, and intellectually. That's because the way my parents raised me and my brother was, to put it nicely, pretty flawed. We were your typical middle-class suburban family outside of Boston, living in a good neighborhood with decent schools. My mom was a part-time elementary school teacher, and my dad worked in insurance. But underneath all that, there was this unspoken rule that shaped my whole upbringing. I was supposed to be the responsible one, the model child who set the example, while my younger brother Jason, who's now about 27, could do no wrong. It was obvious from a young age how unfairly things were divided between us. I remember this one time when I was 16 and Jason was 8, I got grounded for a whole month because of a B+ on a chemistry test. They said I was wasting my potential. Meanwhile, Jason got caught stealing from our dad's wallet, again, and they just shrugged it off as a phase. This was just a tiny snippet of how things were. Every time Jason screwed up, which was often, it got brushed under the rug. My mom would just say, "He'll learn eventually," or "He's just sensitive," which was her way of saying let's just ignore it and hope he figures it out. The pressure on me was intense and exhausting. I constantly heard things like, "Why aren't you trying harder?" Or "You need to set a better example for your brother," or "Don't you know he looks up to you?" I juggled a part-time job at a local coffee shop, volunteered at the library, and took all these AP classes in high school to keep my GPA pristine for college applications. Jason, on the other hand, barely went to class and spent most of his time in the basement playing video games. Yet somehow, I still needed to do better. No matter what I achieved, it was never enough. When I brought home straight A's, my mom wouldn't praise me, she'd immediately worry about how it might make Jason feel about his grades when I was named valedictorian. This pattern kept on into adulthood. Jason struggled with his studies and everyone would tell him, "At least you're doing your best, sweetie." Not everyone is cut out for academics. It only got worse with higher stakes. He dropped out of community college after a semester because it stressed him out, and my parents covered his rent for what was supposed to be a gap year, which stretched into 5. I, on the other hand, worked 2 part-time jobs, one at a coffee shop in the mornings and a waitressing gig at night, to pay for state college. I'll never forget when I moved out at 18. I managed to rent a small studio apartment with a roommate using the money I had saved. When I told my dad I was leaving, he said, "Well, you'll need to start paying rent if you're staying here anyway." Meanwhile, Jason never had to chip in a cent while living at home till he was 25, because job hunting was emotionally draining for him. They even gave him an allowance. They never offered to help with my bills or college expenses, not that I expected them to, but it still stung to see them bend over backward for Jason while I was left to fend for myself. I juggled multiple jobs, took on student loans, and ate more ramen noodles than I'd like to remember. Jason continued living at home until his mid-20s, hopping from one failed job to another, always coming up with excuses like, "The manager had it out for me," or "The company's toxic culture wasn't a good fit for my personality." He never took responsibility for anything and always blamed external factors while my parents just cleaned up his mess. So, growing up, my parents were all about making excuses for a certain someone, encouraging his behavior left and right. Meanwhile, I was juggling 2 jobs while going to college, graduated with honors, and landed an entry-level gig at a software company. I hustled, worked tons of overtime, and jumped on any chance to get more education and certifications. My parents never pitched in to help, and honestly, I never asked them to. But whenever Jason needed a hand, they'd have no problem hitting me up for financial support to help him get back on track. Fast forward to last week, and my mom called, which was a big deal in itself. You see, she never calls just to chat. Nope, when the phone rings, it's because she needs something. This time was no different. The call kicked off with overly friendly chit-chat, which is her game plan to butter me up before getting to the real reason she's calling. She started with, "How's work? Still at that tech company? Eating well?" Which was so out of character, I knew something was fishy. My mom couldn't care less about my eating habits, and the only thing she remembers about my job is that it involves computers. She couldn't even remember the company's name when we spoke at Thanksgiving 3 months ago, even though I've been there for 5 years. It felt like she was trying too hard to be casual, and the whole conversation was awkward. She even asked about my boyfriend, and I've been single since the whole engagement fiasco last year, which, surprise, surprise, Jason had a part in. She asked about my apartment too, even though I've owned a house for 2 years, and about my cat, which is funny since I'm allergic and definitely don't have one. Every question was a reminder of how little she knows about my life, like tiny paper cuts. Then she dropped the bomb: Jason was in trouble again. I wasn't surprised, he's always in some mess. But I didn't expect this level of trouble. He racked up $40,000 in debt, not the kind you can just brush off, like credit cards or student loans. Nope, he borrowed from some shady people, and they were serious about getting their money back. My mom's voice cracked like she was about to cry, a tactic that usually gets me to cave, and she wasted no time laying on the guilt trip. You've done so well, you're the strong one. Jason's not like you, he needs your help. He's sensitive, she said. As I sat there, staring out my home office window at the neighborhood I'd worked so hard to afford, I was floored. $40,000? How do you even get into that much debt? I asked how it happened, half expecting some crazy story about a failed business venture or a scam. Her response was dismissive, like swatting a fly, saying, "That doesn't matter right now." It made my stomach churn. What matters is that he's your brother. Family helps family. We've always taught you that. For years, they've used that family helps family line whenever they hit me up for money for one of Jason's revolutionary crypto investments that tanked in 2 weeks, or when he lifted my credit card info after his girlfriend kicked him out. They expected me to let him crash at my place every time he messed up. I always pushed aside my annoyance and did what they said because, deep down, I was still that kid wanting my parents' approval, hoping they'd finally see how much I was helping out. But $40,000? That's not just a loan, it's the down payment for a house or a year's worth of hard work, my safety net, and my future security. This time, I couldn't do it. I told her no for the first time in my life. I apologized but said I couldn't save Jason from the mess he made. The mood shifted in seconds. My mom went from sounding helpless to furious. If it wasn't so shocking, it might have been impressive how quickly she flipped. Her concerned mom voice vanished, replaced with something cold and sharp. She started yelling, calling me selfish, saying, "After everything we've done for you, this is how you repay us? You're abandoning your family when they need you most." She even pulled out the big guns, the whole nuclear option guilt trip. So, there I was, getting another one of those calls. It was my mom, basically guilt tripping me about Jason's mess. She actually asked if I wanted Jason's problems on my conscience. I mean, come on, the guy borrowed money from some seriously shady people, yet somehow it's my fault? Her attempt to make me responsible for Jason's bad life choices was just ridiculous and, honestly, not funny at all. I cut the call short because my heart was racing, my chest felt tight, and my hands were shaking so much that hitting the end call button was a mission. Even though the usual family pressure and guilt were weighing on me, I felt a weird sense of relief. For once, I stood my ground. I've worked way too hard to let his screw-ups drag me down. I've spent years building my career, becoming independent, and living my own life instead of always bailing Jason out. The thought of risking my own financial security for his reckless antics was just too much. But, man, growing up in a messy family really screws with your head. Guilt sneaks in even when you're sure you've made the right call. My family has this knack for twisting things around, making me second-guess myself, and somehow turning me into the villain. And here I am wondering if maybe I was wrong to say no, even though deep down I know it was the right move. Confronting my family felt right in the moment, but now I'm stuck with all these swirling doubts. What if they're right? Am I being selfish? What if Jason really suffers because I wouldn't help? I know logically I'm not responsible for my brother's choices or their fallout, but a part of me, the little kid still wanting my parents' approval, keeps asking, what if? Honestly, I have no clue what's going to happen next. That call was just the start, and I was totally blindsided by what happened afterward. I have this feeling it's far from over, especially with Jason. My parents aren't the best at hearing no. I'm trying to stay strong and remind myself I deserve to protect my future. As this saga unfolds, I might need some more advice. Stay tuned for updates. So, here's the scoop. First off, thanks to everyone who left supportive comments on my last post. I didn't expect such an outpouring of support. Things have gotten a bit wild over the past week, though, not in a good way. Remember how I sensed this wasn't the end? Yep, I was spot on. Right after I hung up on my mom, she and the rest of the family launched a full-on guilt trip campaign, starting with a barrage of texts. Then things got even darker. Last Tuesday, my bank flagged some unusual activity. Someone tried to use my personal info to get into my account, and the bank's fraud team called me directly. They spotted a huge transfer attempt from a sketchy IP address using my details. Turns out, whoever tried to hack my account knew my mom's maiden name, my social security number, and even the name of my first pet, stuff only Jason would know. When I realized my own brother was trying to rip me off, I quickly updated all my security details. Money was just the tip of the iceberg. This was a whole new level of betrayal. It gets even crazier. My awesome Aunt Catherine gave me a ring yesterday. Apparently, my parents are spinning a totally different story to the rest of the family. They're painting me as this heartless villain, living it up while my poor brother's supposedly struggling. They're saying I've got stacks of cash I'm hoarding while Jason fights for his life. Thankfully, Aunt Catherine wasn't buying it and called to get my side of things. She was floored when I told her about the bank fraud. She also spilled something I didn't know. Jason's been hitting up family members for cash for months, each time with a different sob story. He told Grandma he needed money for medical bills. To our cousin Mark, it was all about a can't-miss investment. To another relative, it was to start a small business. Jason's really been weaving quite the web of lies. Uncle Steve dropped a bomb on our family, telling our parents he was in debt to some shady folks, but none of this really made sense. Then, this morning, things got real when my dad shot me an email. We hadn't talked directly since all this started, and his message was icy and a bit threatening. Here's a snippet of what he wrote. Your actions are making us rethink your place in the family. Your mom and I have always supported you, paid for your education, and given you every chance to succeed. Your current successes are because of our sacrifices. If you keep ignoring your brother when he needs help, there will be consequences. Think hard about your next step. The bit about funding my education cracked me up. I'm still paying off student loans. But their warning was unmissable. Help Jason out or get cut off from the family. They think they can control me by threatening to shut me out, but they don't get that I've already been cut off for years. Our relationship is conditional. I have to babysit Jason, play my role, and accept their twisted idea of family loyalty. I talked to the IT security team at work about someone trying to hack my accounts, and they're helping me secure everything linked to my job. Plus, I've started recording every text, email, and voicemail, even though it feels weird to collect evidence against my own family. The weirdest part? Jason's girlfriend, or maybe ex, who knows, texted me out of the blue. She said Jason's been acting weird, and though we aren't close, she was worried after hearing him say cryptic stuff about getting what's his and teaching people lessons. So, I'm setting up security cameras at home this weekend, not taking any chances after the bank account fiasco. I never thought I'd be defending myself from my own family, but here we are. People keep asking why I don't just pay $40,000 to make this go away. Even if I wanted to, which I don't, my aunt mentioned Jason's been borrowing left and right, so his debt is probably way more. Helping my brother now would just enable more bad behavior. I'm meeting with a financial advisor next week to lock down my accounts and see what my options are if things get worse. I'm also thinking about talking to a lawyer about the fraud attempt, not necessarily to press charges, just to be prepared. If anything major happens, I'll update you guys. Thanks for letting me vent, and I really appreciate everyone who commented on my last post and shared their own family drama. It's good to know I'm not the only one dealing with this kind of dysfunction. In my second update, I decided to confront Jason face-to-face after the bank fraud attempt I mentioned before. What followed was shocking yet somehow exactly what I should have expected. I headed over to Jason's place yesterday evening. It's a rundown spot in a sketchy part of town. He looked rough, unshaven, and was wearing a raggedy t-shirt. When he finally opened the door, he said, "Nice of you to finally show up." No apology for the bank account hack, no explanation about the $40,000 debt, just pure entitlement. When I asked him about the bank fraud, he casually said, "Mom and Dad said if things got bad enough, you'd cave." I was just speeding up the process, like he was talking about the weather, not a serious crime. That's when I noticed something sketchy about his apartment. There were several phones and a pile of credit card statements with different names on his coffee table. He quickly shoved them into a drawer before I could get a better look, and it hit me, this might be way more than just my bank account on the line. Just as I was leaving, our parents showed up. Apparently, Jason texted them. They burst in like they owned the place, Mom crying and Dad fuming, leading to the most heated family argument we've ever had. Dad started by saying how disappointed they were in me for being selfish, while Mom said they failed as parents because I turned out to be so heartless. The worst part? They actually defended the bank fraud attempt when I brought it up, with mom saying Jason was desperate. So, get this, when I didn't help out, I wondered what other options he had. My dad was going on about how people screw up when they're cornered, and I was thinking, is he for real? I asked him, like, seriously, if someone in our family did some identity theft, would that be okay? And how did they take that? My dad was all family helps family no matter what, and I just lost it. All these pent-up feelings just came pouring out. I told them how their favoritism messed me up and turned Jason into, well, Jason. I listed out all the times they backed him up, like paying for his college tries but not mine, pushing me to give him cash, and manipulating me emotionally. You won't believe what Jason said, at least I'm not a stuck-up snob who thinks she's better than everyone else. And to top it off, mom nodded in agreement. That's when the penny dropped for me, they weren't going to change. This was about more than money, it was about a toxic family dynamic that wasn't getting any better. So, I whipped out my phone and played back our whole conversation, letting them see I had proof of their shady dealings. Their faces were priceless. I warned them, if my accounts got messed with again, I'd take this recording to the police and press charges. Jason started whining about how I was putting them at risk, and my dad even called me manipulative, which was a first. Jason looked worried for once. Just as I was leaving, Dad grabbed my arm and said, "You'll never be welcome in this family again if you walk out that door." I just looked him straight in the eye and said, "Sounds more like a promise than a threat," and then I left. By the time I got home, my phone was blowing up with missed calls and texts. I blocked their numbers, sat down at my laptop, and drafted an email to all our extended family. I attached screenshots of threatening messages and bank fraud attempts. I was done being their scapegoat, done being Jason's personal ATM, and definitely through keeping their secrets. I figured this might be my last update, it felt like things were about to change big time. I focused on protecting myself, looking into security systems, and chatting with a lawyer about restraining orders. Huge thanks to everyone who's had my back, your support pushed me to finally stand up for myself. Fast forward a month, and everything's different since I decided not to keep their secrets anymore after the blow up at Jason's. I didn't just email the family, I went public on social media with proof of what Jason and my parents were up to. I wasn't out for revenge, just the truth. The reaction was wild. Other people Jason had scammed started speaking up. My cousin Tim said Jason conned him into a $5,000 loan for some dodgy business scheme. Aunt Beth? She revealed she co-signed a loan for him and got stuck with the payments. Even Granny's jewelry that vanished last Christmas had a likely suspect now. But the real kicker came from Jason's old roommate. He spilled the tea on how Jason used his identity for multiple credit cards but was too embarrassed to speak out because the family painted him as perfect. Word got around fast, even at a job Jason was interviewing for. Safe to say, he didn't get hired. My parents' standing took a hit too. They'd played the role of supportive parents with a difficult daughter for ages, but now folks knew the truth. Church folks started keeping their distance, Dad's golf buddies were suddenly busy, and Mom's attempts to spin it all as lies fell flat when faced with hard evidence. Then Jason's current roommate saw my post, learned the truth, and kicked him out within a week. Turns out, people aren't cool living with someone who pulls bank fraud stunts. From what I hear, Jason's now hustling hard just to keep afloat. So, here's the scoop, I've been working odd jobs to tackle my debt now that someone is finally making me face the music for my actions. My credit score took a hit, but surprise, surprise, my parents have gone off the social media grid. No more passive-aggressive quotes about ungrateful kids or family values nonsense popping up in my feed. Honestly, life's never been better. I even got the job promotion I was gunning for. Without all the family drama and financial headaches, I've actually been able to focus on myself and grow both personally and professionally. Who knew that was possible? And, guess what? I've met someone who totally gets it when it comes to respecting boundaries. According to the few family members I still talk to, my parents don't even bring me up in conversation anymore. Finally. No more guilt trips or manipulation attempts. They've finally figured out that actions have real consequences and that getting called out sometimes speaks louder than any courtroom drama. If you've ever dealt with toxic family vibes, you know that sometimes just telling it like it is can be more powerful than anything else. The people who need to hear it will, and those who don't shouldn't matter. Honestly, my family was way more scared of being exposed for who they really were than any legal repercussions. By speaking up, not only did I break free from their grip, but I also inspired others to stand up for themselves. Huge shout out to everyone who's had my back on this wild journey. I finally feel really free, like truly for the first time in my life, and it's okay if the family you're born into isn't the one you need in your life now. I'm busy building my own circle of folks who value integrity, accountability, and genuine care for others. So, this is my last update. With this chapter closed, I'm ready to start fresh, without guilt, lies, or the constant pressure of having to take care of everyone else. And let me tell you, no lawsuit could ever make me feel as good as this newfound freedom does. Thanks for tuning in. If you haven't already, go ahead and subscribe and hit that notification bell to keep up with more eye-opening real-life stories. Cheers.